This week on NHRA Today, Alderman storms at St. Air for his 12th career crown, while Kenny is the king of Quebec. Jim blankets the great white North and the fast fledglings of alcohol bunny car. From the Thousand Islands region between New York and Canada, these stories and more on this edition of NHRA Today. One of the most beautiful and unique water playgrounds in all of North America is here on the St. Lawrence River between the U.S. and Canada. It's called the Thousand Islands. And today we come to you from the very heart of the islands, Alexandria Bay, New York. Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Evans. One of the real constants in my life has been an interest in boating. And with this open weekend between Montreal and New Jersey, I've invited a great pal of mine and one of your favorite nitro funny car drivers, Ed the Ace McCullough, down here to enjoy my boat in my favorite place. What do you think, Ace?
Oh, Steve, this is beautiful. 21 years ago, I crossed that bridge, looked down over it. It was one of the most gorgeous sights I've ever seen in my life. When you called me and asked me to come do this program with you, I'm in love. It's great here.
Well, let's get going. Let's not waste any time. There's a lot to see.
Wait, Steve,
What?
Evans, we got to find out what's hot.
He's been watching. John Force's 1990 championship season was punctuated with fire. But this year, it looked like the team had become flame-proof. That is, until qualifying in Montreal, when blown-out spark plugs allowed raw fuel to pump under the headers and forced the team's radical new cutlass body. As always, Force had a unique outlook on the situation.
We're back.
Jack Clark's Top Fuel team will be back in action next week at the Summer Nationals. And the Tom McEwen-driven machine warmed up earlier this week with a test session in Texas.
We're here today testing. We tested Saturday. We're testing again today on my day off. And we're just looking forward to putting on a good show for the fans and making this car one of the top cars in the country.
And finally, the NHRA Technical Department has confirmed that clutchless 5-speed transmissions, like those that caused a controversy in Columbus, are legal. And that's what's hot. Now that we've found out what's hot, it's time to put a little heat in the motor in the old Sea Ray here. While we're pre-flighting the boat, let's hear from Dave McClellan, the first of 3 reports from Montreal Pro Stock.
In some ways, the biggest news in Pro Stock at Le Grand National Molson was that Darrell Alderman was not the #1 qualifier. In fact, Darrell missed all but the last qualifying session and struggled to claim the 13th spot. But come race day, the Mopar Dodge was on form, easily moving to a second-round meeting with the Atsuko Beretta of Gordy Rivera. Gordy had impressed everyone by qualifying 5th, but against the Dodge, a tardy start in the far lane put the Arizona driver behind and out of the program, while Alderman advanced to the Final 4. Beating Darrell's Daytona would be either the Pennzoil Pontiac of Jerry Ekman or #1 qualifier Scott Jeffrion. At the green, Ekman moved first in an upset seemed in the making, but as the car slammed through the gears, Scott moved fast to take the win light. The Final 4 had a familiar look to it. The red and white Dodge against AC Delco Blue, with Alderman holding lane choice and selecting the near lane. As the cars left the line, they were door to door, but gradually Alderman edged ahead to victory and his 7th final round slot of the season. On the other side of the eliminations ladder, Bob Glidden's Motorcraft Ford Probe met up with the surprise #2 qualifier, Jim Yates, in his Pontiac. The 10-time Winston champion had not won in Canada since 1979, and that win came at the wheel of a Plymouth Arrow. Yates knew he needed a quick reaction time if he wanted to knock off Glidden, and the Fran Bendix driver delivered with a virtually perfect start. But that was as close as this race would ever get, as Glidden blasted ahead and into the Final 4. Meeting Glidden would be the victor of a clash of cutlasses, Larry Morgan's Castrol machine, and Warren Johnson's AC Delco entry. Johnson, a 2-time winner this year, trailed as the cars left the line, but then Morgan slowed with problems in the far lane, and WJ was in the Final 4 against his nemesis Glidden. That battle between 2 of Pro Stock's legends was decided by reaction time. as Bob got away 0.02 of a second ahead and held that margin for the entire quarter mile. In the championship encounter, Alderman cut his best reaction time of the entire event. And in one of the quickest side-by-side races in pro stock history, Darrell's 7:20 elapsed time set aside Bob's 7:21. Great race in the final round against Bob Glidden.
Oh, yes, it's always a good race with Bob Glidden. He's a 10-time world champ, and he's always tough.
Darrell's 5th win in 8 races extends his points lead over Warren Johnson. Jerry Ekman and Bob Glidden are battling for 3rd, while Scott Jeffreyon holds steady in 5th.
Darrell Alderman had little time to celebrate his pro stock victory. He immediately boarded a private plane and flew to his home in Lexington, Kentucky to attend to the legal difficulties that we have been following. Here's the latest development. On Thursday, June 20th, the 2 men indicted with Darrell Alderman on cocaine-related charges, Gregory Frankel and Paul Adams, pled guilty to lesser charges and agreed to testify against Alderman. After an initial unsuccessful attempt at postponement, Derek Gordon, Alderman's attorney, refiled the request, and on Monday, June 24th, the judge agreed to postpone the trial until September 9th.
In the interest of justice, in the interest of my client, refiled the motion and go in there and argue it. And I think that the court evidently was of the opinion that I had some good points to make and ruled favorably upon our motion. So now we have, well, let's see, I guess 2.5 months. We got a lot of time. I think it's going to be good.
NHRA Today will continue to follow this story as it develops in the coming months. We're about ready to go out and count some of these 1,000 islands. And so we can better enjoy our day, a good buddy of mine, a native of this region, and its #1 drag racing fan, Rick Gregoire, will be at the helm. You about ready, Rick?
Ready.
All right, hit it. Stay with us. When we come back, we'll talk to the only 5-time U.S. National Funny Car Champion, Ed McCullough. You believe this weather? Is this great? Hit it, Ski King.
NHRA Today is being brought to you by Castrol GTX, the motor oil that provides maximum protection against viscosity and thermal breakdown.
Welcome back to NHRA Today. We're passing by the largest tourist attraction here in the island, Bolt Castle. Construction was started in 1910, and tragically, it was never finished. Ed, you grew up around a lot of water in Northern California. Were you a boater?
Well, Steve, when I was young, my dad had a boat, you know, a hot rod boat. So I spent quite a bit of time out on the water.
You went to high school, literally, during American Graffiti days, Visalia. Did you have a hot rod? Were you king of the street?
No, Steve, I never did have a street race car. However, at age 15, I took the engine out of my dad's boat and we put it in a race car, and that's how I become a drag racer.
Don't ever tell my kid that story, please. What about high school? Were you a good athlete?
Well, fair. I mean, I played a little football when I was in high school. I liked to play football. I wrestled a little, but not a great deal.
I see you as a wrestler.
Well, wrestling was okay, but you had to abide by the rules.
You've never been quick to turn the other cheek. All right, right now let's find out from Dave McClellan how Ed McCullough and the other funny car drivers fared in Montreal last weekend.
The dominant performance in funny car at Le Grand National Molson was turned in by Jim White, who set both halves of the track record during qualifying. Jim's opponent in round 2 was Steve's boating buddy, Ed McCullough, who qualified the Otter Pops machine 7th. At the green, the ace got the jump on Jim, but then the old slowed with engine woes while the Daytona banged a blower and damaged the body. The Awalian Punch Gang set about repairs to prepare for the Final Four, where they would face either Mark Oswald or Al Hoffman. The In-N-Out Burger Trans Am had qualified 5th and held lane choice, but just after the lights turned green, Mark's mount momentarily lost traction in the near lane, and despite an expert job of backpedaling, it was the Blower Drive Services Ford Probe taking the win. In the Final Four, White used his lane choice option, took the near lane and got away with a better reaction time, while behind him, Hoffman smoked the tires due to a chassis problem.
It got out there and we just started to pull ahead of White, and all of a sudden it slammed the front end down, smoked the tires, and I couldn't steer it. It broke the A-frame off. It's a brand new race car. Shouldn't have done that.
On the other side of eliminations, Chuck Etchel's impressed by qualifying 3rd, his best performance of the season, and the Super Winch Trans Am moved easily to the 2nd round, where he met up with defending champion John Force. As the cars left the starting line, Force had the advantage, but then both cars hit traction problems, with the Castrol Cutlass in the near lane pulling out the victory and setting up a battle with the hottest funny car in the land. After winning the previous two events in Memphis and Columbus, Mike Dunn came to the land of hockey looking for the hat trick. He easily advanced to his Final Four meeting with John Force, where a victory for the Snickers Dodge would tighten up the Winston points chase. Mike was certainly up to the task as he took a slight initial lead, but as both cars struggled for traction, it was Force in the far lane who had the better throttle control that paid off with a win and a spot in the final. The tale of the championship round was told within moments of the flicker of the light, as Force went up in smoke almost immediately, and Jim White had his second national event victory of the season. Jim White, this was a very well-earned but well-deserved victory.
Well, thanks. We came up here to win this race. The car is prepared to really be a fast race car. Had a lot of things to do today, but Wes and the guys never gave up. They kept working, and here we are in the winner's circle.
Jim's win gives him a solid hold on third in the Winston points, just behind Mike Dunn. John Force continues to lead. Mark Oswald is fourth, and Ed McCulloch holds steady in fifth. Castrol presents the GTX Pipeline, the latest news from the world of drag racing.
Jim White, the driver of the Hawaiian Punch Dodge Daytona Nitro Funny Car, is the first to wear a brand new model Simpson helmet. Now, we've seen what they call fresh air systems before in oval track racing. How does it work, Jim, and why at the drags?
It works wonderful. It keeps the nice cool air going across your face, and the best part for me is the face shield never fogs up. The unit's complete right here. Air comes in here, up through the ductwork right in front of the visor. It's great.
It's got a little motor in it with a fan that hooks up to 12 volts.
That's correct. I carry the battery pack right on the car. I plug it in just before we start the car. I've already shown it to several of the guys here. They're in love with it.
Welcome back to NHRA Today in the Thousand Islands with Ed the Ace McCulloch. And Ed, I'm sure a lot of the people that own these beautiful homes struggle to get where they are, but no harder than you struggle to be a pro drag racer.
Well, Steve, we've struggled a lot over the years. The first time that Art Whipple and I ever left to go on the road, we were headed to Rockingham, North Carolina. We left with Art's wife's credit card, about $5 cash, a six-pack of Pepsis, and we were on the road.
And then things got worse.
Well, they did get worse. The next trip, we were to our first NHRA national event, which was the U.S. Nationals, and we were 150 miles away from home. The rig caught on fire, burnt the car to the ground, and we never made it to Indy that year.
Not just the car, but your clothes, his wife's credit card, everything was in that trailer.
Everything we had burned up. We had, at home, we had one engine left, but, there's a lot of good people in drag racing. Ed Wills, he helped us out, got us back on our feet, got going again, and, we've gone from there.
And now you've won 5 Indies. Right now, let's check in with Dave McClellan again for this Top Fuel report from Montreal.
It seemed only fitting that the dominant force in Top Fuel qualifying at Le Grand National Molson was Canadian Frank Hawley. From the first day on, his Coors Light Special topped the timesheets, and he set a new track record in the process of 5.03 seconds. Hawley moved easily to the Final Four, where his opponent would be the winner of the latest chapter of the battle between Kenny Bernstein and Laurie Johns. Laurie's Jolly Rancher Candies machine deep staged and cut a better reaction time, but the Budweiser King in the far lane charged past for a costly win when the engine let go near the finish line. In the Final Four, Bernstein held lane choice and selected the far lane. And at the green, the three-time 1991 winner cut the quicker reaction time and moved to the championship round as Hawley momentarily lost traction and faded. On the other side of the ladder, current Winston champion Joe Amato had an easy march to the Final Four, where he would meet the winner of the confrontation between Winston points leader Don Prudhomme and Dick LaHaye. LaHaye in the far lane was carrying sponsorship from the Canadian Tim Hortons donut chain, and at the green, Dick slapped a hole shot on the snake. But when the cars reached the finish line, Prudhomme had edged ahead to claim the win by 4 thousandths of a second. Coincidentally, that was also the margin by which Amato's Valvoline Special held lane choice in the Final Four. Joe decided to stay in the near lane, but at the green, he blazed the tires immediately, and Prudhomme's Skoal Bandit stormed to an impressive victory. The championship round would be the first time that the former funny car rivals Prudhomme and Bernstein would meet in a Top Fuel final. And at the green, Bernstein in the far lane was off the mark first and kept that lead to claim his 4th win of the season. Kenny, this was not an easy victory.
No, it was very tough today, but Dale Armstrong and the guys just kept working at it. Got it right on the button, 505, 505, 502. You can't ask for anything better. But let me say this, Don Perdome's a heck of a competitor. It was a great race.
Kenny's win moves him to within 12 points of leader Prudhomme. Joe Amato lies 3rd, Frank Hawley is 4th, and Laurie Johns rounds out the top 5.
You know, Ace, I would not even attempt this narrow passage were it not for Rick's local knowledge. But still, to take my mind off my last propeller, tell me how this sport has changed since your first Indy win in '71 and your last in '90.
Well, Steve, you know, back in the old days, we worried about getting the gas in the vehicle and, you know, getting to the next race, make a few bucks, buy some parts, and do it all over again.
No pressure.
No pressure. Today, you know, it's a business world. I mean, we have the sponsors, the media. We have a lot of people to take into consideration.
Well, speaking of Indianapolis, grab a pencil and a piece of paper, because here comes all the details on Diamond P's fabulous contest that could get you there on us. How would you like to see all the excitement of the 1991 U.S. Nationals from an insider's perspective? Have you ever wanted to experience the luxury of the Top Eliminator Club? Well, all this and more can be yours courtesy of Diamond P Sports. Just send a stamped self-addressed envelope to the address on your screen for an official entry form. The winner will receive airfare for 2, hotel accommodations, use of a rental car, plus 2 Top Eliminator Club passes. This offer expires July 30th, so send for your entry form today. Welcome back, everyone, to the Thousand Islands. And Ed McCullough, there's that beautiful bridge you talked about earlier that took you and your family to Montreal to race. The key word is you and your family.
Steve, you know, drag racing is family. Your kids, my kids, have grown up at the drag strip. It's a good life, but the one thing that is most important in my line of business is having the support of your family. My wife, Linda, and the kids, you know, they've always been behind me in what I do. And, you know, Jason, my youngest son, he's now a member of the team. And, you know, we have a good time.
And speaking of family, you'll find a lot of them in sportsman racing. Here is Bob Fry's report from both sides of the continent.
It was the 2nd time this season that the sportsman cars have visited Senair. A Winston Drag Racing Series divisional event was held at the track a month ago, and one of the winners from that race was in the finals of Super Gas again. Bob Babola in his 86 Chevy was up against Claude Lanaville's 72 Pinto in the near lane. Babola got a great jump and held off Claude for the Oscar and another win at Senair.
At the points race, I think I had a little bit of luck going for me. This one here was a little more, I drove better, and the car ran the number.
The Superstock final saw the V6 Buick of Arthur Joe Covert pitted against Dan Fletcher's Camaro in the near lane. Covert nipped Fletcher at the line to pick up his 3rd different class win at a national event.
It's been in 3 different categories: Super Gas, Super Comp, and now Super Stock, which I've been working a year to do.
Now, here are the rest of the winners from Le Grand National Molson. While the Grand Nationals were going on in Senair, West Coast racers headed for Sacramento Raceway and the Winston Drag Racing Series Division 7 event. Now, if you've never been to a race in California, take it from me, they do things a little bit differently out there. This vehicle, for example, was typical of almost 400 that entered the event. Does the name Pee Wee Fry ring a bell? In the Division 7 Top Alcohol Funny Car class, the old guard of Brad Anderson, Lou Gasparelli, and Pat Austin suddenly have a couple of new challengers. Brett Williamson, who has 2 divisional wins already this season, and Sterling Taylor, a close second in the points, have the unenviable position of unseating some of the top names in the sport.
I think that the potential for a changing of the guard is stronger than it's ever been. Brad, Louis, some of these guys, they've been tough. But now there's, hey, you know, there's new kids on the block.
Usually there's 1 or 2 cars that's just light years away on points, and then the other people are out there just kind of dinking around for 3rd or 4th place. But I think you might see someone new this year, hopefully me, but come out with a win for the Division 7.
As eliminations progressed, Williamson took out Taylor for the challengers, and Austin punched Anderson's ticket for the reigning Flopper King. And then in the final, it was Austin in the near lane versus Williamson, old against new in a classic battle. Austin's olds held on for a narrow win over Williamson's Corvette.
He was right there, boy. It was pretty exciting there for a while. But as soon as he started pouring the power on, you come around me and it was all over.
The competition eliminator final was dominated by a pair of dragsters, Jeff Gillette in the far lane and Tony Chaperone. Gillette picked up his second win of the season by an eyelash, and the victory vaulted him into contention in the points battle.
You can't get too wrapped up in the points race. Just go and do the best you can with what you got and see what happens. We didn't even really pursue the points last year, and at the end of the year, we finished 10th in the world, and we were as surprised as anybody.
Now, here are the rest of the winners from Division 7.
Well, Ed, we got a half a tank of fuel. We got a good half day left. What do you say? Let's pick up the wives and have some fun.
Let's go, Steve. Sounds great to me.
Before we leave you, though, I must thank Rick Gregoire and his wonderful family, Mike Fulton, Barry Chalk of Alex Bay, and the staff of the Edgewood Resort. They've been terrific. I'm relieving you, Captain. Thanks for getting us through that cut, though. You ready, Ace? Hang on, boys. Yeah!
NHRA Today has been brought to you by Castrol GTX, engineered for today's smaller cars. Promotional consideration provided for and a fee paid by the special offer from Diamond P.
For years, you've all loved Diamond P Sports Home Video, Decade of Thrills, the ultimate drag racing experience. Well, I've got some great news. Don Perdomo and I are back with the all-new 90-minute Decade 2, the thunder of the 80s. Eddie Hill cracks the fours, then flies away. Connie Coletta marches past 290. Ed McCullough and John Collins will never forget the Cajun Nationals of 84, nor Kenny Bernstein, Maple Grove, PA, 87. Glidden won his 50th and his 75th in the same decade. It's all in Decade of Thrills, too. To get your copy, send $24.95 to the address in your screen, or better yet, call 1-800-767-1600. Visa and MasterCard accepted, no CODs. Call now, 1-800-767-1600.
NHRA Today is a presentation of Diamond P Sports.